Gatsby, in its general strategy, tries to take a sector approach. Our approach is to think about all the constraints.
In Africa, it's all about economic growth. It's all about increasing people's incomes, and it's all about us working in different sort of sectors of the economy to try and bring that about. So it's all about poverty reduction, but it comes back to economic growth and how can we sort of help bring that about.
Lord Sainsbury met with the President of the Republic of Tanzania. He requested Lord Sainsbury to see any value chain which can be assisted. And the idea was to engage in the cotton industry.
One of the reasons why the President chose cotton is that it's an area that's 13 million people directly or indirectly involved in cotton business. So if you double the national output, you are likely to have double the incomes of the farmers who are growing it, and through that you are likely to dent poverty.
The reason why this program came about at all is that the Tanzanian cotton industry had become very uncompetitive. Farmers were price takers, and they were only rewarded on volumes. So they would often add water and sand and other things to the cotton to weigh it down, which of course contaminates it. And so Tanzanian cotton on the world market was discounted.
We realized that price competition alone was not really helping the industry to grow. Buyers would come and offer varying prices to farmers, fine. But farmers needed a lot more. They needed inputs provided on credit. They needed the technical know-how on how to grow their crops so they can attain high yields. These could only be obtained under a contract farming arrangement.
So the Gatsby Foundation has been supporting TechnoServe since 2008 in a project focused on the cotton industry in Tanzania. TechnoServe has been tasked with taking all cotton farmers in Tanzania, of which there are over 400,000, and putting them under a contract farming model in which they have a contract with the ginning companies, with the processors, so that the farmers can get access to inputs, access to fertilizer, access to pesticides that enable them to increase their yields and allow for better quality seed cotton to be produced, which is ultimately what's going to drive competitiveness in the industry.
The second thing we found as a constraint was that the quality of soil is really poor in the regions where cotton's grown in Tanzania. And so we've invested in an agronomic practice called conservation agriculture, which aims to rebuild soil fertility over time.
First principle of conservation agriculture is minimum tillage. So instead of ploughing, we would use subsoilers, we would use rippers. They basically loosen the soil on the planted line. A conventional farmer ploughing, doing everything well, he gets between 6 and 10 bolls per plant. With conservation agriculture, where we also use fertilizers and herbicides, we can get 20 to 30 bolls per plant.
What the program has done is to undertake soil testing to establish the levels of nutrients so that when we come to the application of fertilizers, we exactly know which type of land of soil needs what.
Okiguru research is involved in developing technologies for various crops, but for cotton it's focusing on producing high-yielding varieties, addressing pest problems, disease problems, soil fertility problems. What we see now is that at least there is a good system of seed distribution system, which was not there before. Farmers under proper management, they are getting many balls and actually vigor plants. But also there are several challenges which are still facing the industry. So Kiriguru actually has an important role to play, and given enough funding, given enough staff, I'm sure we'll be able to perform according to the expectation.
When TechnoServe started in 2008 with this work, we really were just focused on testing this model on a very small scale. So in the first year we had a little bit over 1,000 farmers, and we're really just introducing the concept, testing it with a few ginners, and starting to educate people about contract farming. In each season after that, we've been expanding the pilots and testing it with more and more farmers, expanding geographically into new areas, with the idea that each time we're learning something about how to do this. At the same time, the regulatory environment was being changed to make contract farming possible on a broad scale. And increasingly more ginners more processing companies were coming on board and willing to take on the risk that really the system requires that they take on.
From those pilot works, we saw the opportunities that were there and really embarked passionately, engaging both the public, private sector, farmers and everybody into making this program move the direction it is moving now.
We faced a lot of challenges trying to do this. In the early years, obviously just educating people about what contract farming is and why this would be beneficial. When we started in the industry, there was incredible distrust between the ginners and the farmers. Neither party really wanted to work together, so there was a lot of work that we had to do and others had to do in order to get the early farmers and the ginners who participated just to take the risk and to try it. So that is consistently a challenge because that mistrust is quite deep-seated.
There's a fair amount of natural resistance to contract farming, and part of our project is reinforcing the regulator, the Tanzania Cotton Board, in allowing the TCB to provide some security to both the ginners and to the farmers that the institution is going to succeed.
From the beginning, it's been research to help them understand their industry, and in the end, really, what we're moving towards now is investing in the Tanzania Cotton Board itself to strengthen them as an institution so they don't need our help moving forward.
So contract farming isn't an ideological solution. Contract farming is a pragmatic solution now for what is needed to address the constraints in Tanzania. In 2 years' time, that could change. In 2 years' time, it could be a common input system. It could be a liberalised market. It could be very different. Once we have the credit systems, once we have extension, once we have those things in place, then it could be a completely alternative system. And that's why the Tanzanian Cotton Board is of critical importance, because it has to have the capacity to look at those things, look at those issues, look at the structures of the market, and to work with the industry to change them to adapt to the circumstances and constraints that it's facing.
And from there, you come to the stakeholders meeting, they will stand up and say, contract farming has been the salvation. We know now how to do conservation agriculture. We know now how to apply input. Of course, still, there's a long way to go, but there is a beginning which has made everybody excited. And we have to maintain that to see to the end.
The entire program is for Tanzanian people. And even our approach, it is for the people themselves to own the process. That's why we are trying to put them, to advise them to be in groups and to empower those groups to see that this process is for them, and because the development they are getting is for their own benefit.
It is about saying, look, I will give you the tools which you can improve your life and make it better. We just want to focus on getting the sector to work well and produce income for people.
It's very clear that with improved availability of inputs and, of course, extension services, we can fly.